I thought it would be just another routine stop, just another car parked in a dark alley, windows fogged up, plates from out of state. My partner was saying something over the radio, but my mind was already locked onto the details. The engine was still warm. Faint music drifted from inside, an old song, barely audible, and that smell, a mix of cigarette smoke, sweat, and something I couldn't place. When the driver stepped out, nervous, hands shaking, I knew something was off. We had him step away, called for backup, and I started searching the car. Gloves on, flashlight ready. Glove box, empty. Back seat, some tossed clothes, a stained teddy bear. Then under the driver's seat I found it. A worn-out folder, crumpled. Inside, papers, and a letter. Handwritten, shaky handwriting. I started reading without thinking, and with every line my hands began to sweat. That letter wasn't just a confession, it was a cry for help, and it was addressed to me. My full name, my badge number, my former unit in crimes against children. My heart stopped. Only one person could have written it, someone I thought I'd never hear from again. And in that moment, I knew this letter was going to change everything, and the crime I thought I was fighting, maybe it wasn't so simple after all. I was never the kind of cop who dreamed of wearing a badge as a kid. I grew up in a neighborhood where police were viewed with suspicion, sometimes even fear. My father, he was a truck driver for 30 years. A tough man, few words, but fair. My mother was a nurse, the kind who worked 3 shifts without complaining, only to collapse in her bedroom when she thought no one was listening. But I listened, more than once. And maybe it was in those quiet sobs of my mother, in my father's swallowed silence, that something was born in me. A need to protect, not for glory, not for medals, but because every day I saw the weight the world placed on the shoulders of people who fought the good fight. I joined. The force by accident, really. I was 21 when a buddy convinced me to take the entrance exam. Just to see, he said. He quit halfway through the academy. I stayed. And somewhere between the instructors yelling, the gun range drills, and the training ground takedowns, I found a truth that cut deep. Evil exists, and it doesn't wear a villain's face or come with dramatic music. Sometimes it hides behind a smile, a handshake, and you need to be ready, cold, to see it, and act. I threw myself into the job. Years on patrol, then I moved into investigations. My specialty? Cases of abuse and child exploitation. The kind of thing that steals your sleep, makes you look at your own family with fear. I married young, had a daughter, and soon after, the marriage crumbled. She said I wasn't there anymore, that I'd changed. Maybe she was right. With every case I solved, every child I pulled out of hell, I felt like I was saving a piece of myself that had been lost along the way. But the truth? The deeper you go into this side of humanity, the harder it is to come back. Over time I grew distant. Colleagues said I was obsessed, that I carried the world on my back. And I did, because every face I couldn't save stayed with me. Every cold case, every justice that never came, was another weight on my chest. That's why, 2 years ago, I asked for a transfer, left investigations, went back to patrol. I wanted fresh air, simpler calls, distance from the nightmare that almost swallowed me. But the past, it doesn't let go easily. I pretended I'd moved on, took my shifts, followed protocol, kept my head down. But every car parked on the side of the road reminded me. Every child who looked me in the eye brought back voices I tried to bury. And then came that night, that letter, and everything I tried to lock away came rushing back. Because the name on that page wasn't random. It was a reckoning with myself, with the cop I used to be, and the man I've become. The night was heavy, sky with no stars, clouds hanging low like something up there was about to fall apart. My partner Martinez and I had already driven through 3 neighborhoods, responded to 2 pointless calls, a bar fight, a noise complaint, the usual. It was a Tuesday, but the radio was acting like it was Friday, the kind of Friday where everything goes wrong. We were ready to wrap up the shift when the call came in. The dispatcher's voice was cold, emotionless. Unit 27, we've got an anonymous tip. Suspicious vehicle parked for over an hour at 13th and Broadway. Alley behind the old scrapyard. Out-of-state plates, tinted windows, possible drug activity. Martinez sighed, already expecting another waste of time. That place? Just rats and garbage. I didn't say anything. Something about the call gnawed at me. Maybe it was the address. Maybe it was the flat tone in the dispatcher's voice, like even she didn't believe it was worth sending anyone out. But something felt wrong. And after all, these years in the job, You learn to listen when your gut talks, even if the rest of the world tells you to ignore it. We turned the squad car onto that narrow street, full of potholes, where even the streetlight didn't want to work properly. Just red and blue lights flickering in puddles, dancing like ghosts. The alley was familiar. Too familiar. Months ago, we busted 2 kids with a stolen car there. It's where junkies hide, where shop owners dump what they don't want anyone to find. But that night something was off. Too quiet. And the car. Black sedan. Windows dark. Engine off. Georgia plates. No movement. "Let's check it out quick and get out of here," Martinez said, stepping out with his hand on his holster. I got out too, calm, but scanning every shadow like my life depended on it. We approached slowly. The car looked empty, but the front windshield was fogged up. From the inside. Recent. Someone had been breathing in there not long ago. I tapped on the glass with the flashlight. No response. Tapped again. Silence. Then the driver's door opened. Slow. Cautious. A man stepped out, nervous. Simple clothes, unshaven, hollow eyes. There was something strange about him. Not fear, not aggression, just exhaustion, like he was lost. Hands raised, he kept repeating, "I didn't do anything, I just stopped here for a bit." I told him to step back, hands visible. Martinez frisked him. Nothing. No weapon, no drugs, no documents. Too clean, too calm. I knew something was off. Guys like him don't park in alleys like this for no reason. I asked to search the car. He hesitated. That moment of hesitation said everything. "Sure, go ahead," he said, eyes on the ground, like he wanted to disappear. I opened the door slowly. The smell hit me. Thick, not just dirt. It was the scent of memory, of things buried and forgotten. As I started searching, Martinez called for backup on the radio. The guy had an outstanding warrant for fleeing custody. Things were already escalating. But what froze me wasn't the warrant. It was what I found under the seat. The folder, and inside, the letter. A letter that didn't belong there, that shouldn't have existed, with my name on it, filled with stories no one knew but me. In that moment, that call stopped being about a suspicious car. It became about me, about what I thought I'd buried for good. And I knew, the real case was only just beginning. We arrived at the alley like stepping into an old black and white movie, the kind where time forgot to keep moving. The streetlights flickered overhead, barely alive, casting sickly shadows across cracked asphalt that seemed to have absorbed every ugly thing ever spilled there. Blood, grime, screams. I knew this place. I'd been here more times than I could count. The scrapyard at the end, abandoned for years, with rusted fences leaning crooked, the gate hanging by one hinge. Car parts piled like metal corpses. The air was thick, reeking of urine, rust, and old rain. Martinez cursed under his breath as the squad car jostled through a pothole. "Goddamn place," he muttered, gripping the wheel. This part of the city was a scar that never healed. No one came here unless they had nowhere else to go. And yet, that night, something felt wrong, different. It wasn't just the car, it was the silence. No cats rummaging in trash, no hurried footsteps, no flickering TV from some apartment window. Just the wind nudging the scrapyard's gate with a low screech, and the sound of our breathing. There it was, the car, parked against the wall, lights off, hood still warm, tinted windows reflecting our approach like watching eyes. My body went on high alert, not fear, instinct, the kind of tension that coils deep in your gut when something's about to go bad. I stepped out of the squad car slowly, hand on my flashlight, the other near my weapon. Martinez moved to the opposite side, our steps synchronized without a word. The radio crackled behind us, but I tuned it out. All I saw was that car. I approached the driver's side, tapped on the window once. No response. Again, nothing. Then the door creaked open. The man who stepped out looked misplaced in time. Shirt wrinkled, pants stained with dirt, worn-out shoes. There were marks on his wrists, like he'd been in cuffs recently. His eyes, hollow, watched me with something between fear and surrender. He raised his hands immediately, voice shaking. "I didn't do anything, officer. Just pulled over for a bit. I'm not armed." Martinez moved in, patted him down. Clean. No weapon, no drugs, no ID. Too clean. Too calm. I knew this game. Guys like him don't just stop here for a bit. I asked to search the vehicle. He froze for just a breath. That pause told me everything. "You can look," he muttered, eyes on the ground. I opened the door carefully. The smell hit me. Dense. Not just dirt and sweat. It was the scent of old secrets, of basements locked for too long. I scanned the back seat, a child's car seat, tossed on the floor, stained, empty, a backpack open but nothing inside, everything too orderly, like someone cleaned it up but missed one thing. Under the driver's seat, something pressed against the car's floor. I angled my flashlight. There, a worn black folder nearly invisible in the dark. I reached in, pulled it out. I expected fake IDs, money, maybe a gun. Instead, papers, folded. On top, a letter, yellowed envelope, sealed with old tape. My name, handwritten. My chest tightened. This wasn't possible. Martinez was on the radio. He's got a warrant. Fled custody in Atlanta 2 years ago. It's him. I barely heard him. I stared at my name, ink faded but unmistakable, tore the envelope open, read the first lines. My vision blurred. The handwriting, I knew it. And the words, they told stories only I could know. Then it hit me. This man wasn't random. And this letter, this wasn't evidence. It was a message, a reckoning, a plea for something I didn't yet understand. Standing in that filthy alley, between sirens and shadows, I realized nothing was as it seemed. The crime, it wasn't what I thought. And maybe, neither was the criminal. I still had the letter in my hands when I heard Martinez raise his voice. "Hey, stay where I can see you. Hands up." I snapped my eyes back to the suspect. He hadn't moved, hadn't run, but something had changed in his expression. It wasn't fear anymore. It was exhaustion, like a man who knew the end had come and had stopped fighting it. I slipped the letter into my vest and walked over to Martinez. "He's got an active warrant, remember? Escaped from custody in Atlanta 2 years ago." Martinez glanced at me, eyes narrowing. "You sure it's him?" I nodded. The system had confirmed it, but the truth was, I already knew before the computer did, because part of his story was in that letter. "We need to search the car completely. He's hiding something," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, even though my mind was spinning. Martinez had the guy on his knees cuffed, while I headed back to the vehicle. I popped the trunk. Darkness. Empty at first glance, but the smell was stronger here. Thicker, more rotten. I peeled back the carpet lining. There it was, a wooden box, held shut with a worn leather strap. It was light, too light. I snapped the latch with my flashlight. Inside, photos, old Polaroids, yellowed at the edges, faces of children, some smiling, some clearly afraid. My heart dropped. One of the faces, I recognized her. A girl I investigated, years ago, in a case that was closed for lack of evidence. Her name was in the letter, Emily, 7 years old when she disappeared. I felt like vomiting. I slammed the box shut, my hands shaking, closed my eyes and breathed deep, trying to ground myself. "Find something?" Martinez called. "We found more than we expected," I said, my voice raw, like I'd swallowed broken glass. I grabbed the box, the photos, and returned to the patrol car. The suspect sat still, staring at the ground, lifeless. "What is this? Who are these kids?" I demanded, slamming the photos onto the hood. He didn't respond, just lifted his eyes to mine, hollow, defeated. "You know? You already know." Martinez looked at me, confused. "What's he talking about?" I couldn't answer right away, because at that moment I realized this man wasn't just some random criminal. He was tied directly to the case that destroyed me years ago, the case that got me transferred. That made me give up, the case that never got justice. And now here it was, clawing its way back to the surface, demanding to be seen. I grabbed the radio and called for backup. This wasn't just a simple stop anymore. This was a major case, sensitive material. Martinez stepped aside to talk to dispatch. I stayed by the suspect. "Why now? Why give me this?" I asked, trying to make sense of it. He looked up, eyes glassy. "Because you were the only one who cared." I tried to tell them. No one listened. You almost did. I thought maybe you could finish it." His words hit me like a punch. I knew exactly what he meant. I knew who they were, and I knew deep down he was right. I almost got there. I almost brought justice, but I stopped. I let them push me aside, and now it was all coming back, crashing down on me. The sirens grew louder, backup arriving. Martinez came back, looking uneasy. "What the hell is going on, partner?" I didn't answer, because standing in that filthy alley, holding a box of lost souls and a letter stained with pain, I realized the night was far from over, and this time, I wasn't running. This time, I was going all the way. The backup units began to surround the alley. Red and blue lights painted the cracked walls like we were trapped inside some twisted crime scene painting. Forensics arrived fast. Tactical vests, gloved hands, flashlights sweeping every inch of the scene. They followed protocol, unaware that this wasn't just another call. Martinez handed the suspect over to one of the arriving officers, then turned to me tense. "Those photos, this is bigger than we thought, isn't it?" I nodded, but words wouldn't come. I couldn't stop thinking about those kids. Emily's face haunted me. Her case, my case, had gone cold years ago. I was the lead investigator. Her mother called me every single day begging for news, and I had nothing. Her body was never found. The file was closed, buried, like her. Now, in the trunk of a stranger's car, in a forgotten alley, was proof, not just of what happened to Emily, but that I had been right all along, that she didn't just disappear, that someone took her, that someone protected the person who did. While the forensics team worked, one of the officers approached me. "We found a phone hidden inside the fuse box. Locked. We're sending it to the lab." He paused, uneasy. "But something's not adding up." I could feel it too. This man, the suspect, he wasn't some lone predator. He didn't feel like the kind of monster I'd hunted for years. No, he was part of something, and not the top of it. I stepped back to the car, trying to put the pieces together. That's when Martinez called out again. "Grant, you need to see this." In his hand, another letter. Same shaky handwriting. It was tucked under the passenger seat, folded with care. I took it and opened it. Inside, a list. Names, dates, locations, all coded. One name stopped me cold. Captain Doyle, my former supervisor in the child exploitation unit, the man who pulled me off the Emily Carter case, the man who told me I was too emotionally involved, the man who shut down every lead, every angle, every piece of evidence that didn't fit his narrative. My heart pounded. I couldn't breathe. He was in on it. He wasn't just covering it up. He was part of it. For years I'd doubted myself, thought I'd failed, thought I'd missed something. But no, he had buried the truth, hidden it, used his position to silence me, and others. I stumbled away, chest tight, like I was suffocating. Martinez followed, concern on his face. "You okay?" No, I wasn't, because everything I believed in, the force, the badge, the oath, was collapsing, and I was in the middle of it. The suspect sat silently in the patrol car, eyes fixed ahead. I walked up, shaking, my voice hoarse. "This list, who gave it to you?" He looked at me, quiet, then said, "You already know. You've always known. You just didn't want to see it." And in that moment, I realized he was right. This wasn't just a reopened case. This was a cancer inside the department, protected, nurtured. I hadn't just failed to save Emily. I'd helped protect the people who destroyed her life, by staying silent, by walking away. Shock crashed over me like a wave. I wasn't just revisiting an old crime. I had been part of it, whether I knew it or not, from the moment I let them transfer me, from the moment I let the case die. And now, I had a choice: keep hiding, or burn it all down to get to the truth. I stood there, frozen in that filthy alley, the list trembling in my hand, not from the cold, but from the storm inside me. The sirens had faded. The backup officers were packing up, finishing their reports, unaware that everything around them was about to explode. My world had already shifted. Everything I believed in, everything I was, now felt like a lie. Captain Doyle. That name echoed like a curse in my mind. My mentor, my superior, the man I trusted when he told me I was too close to the Emily Carter case, that I needed distance, that I needed to let go before it destroyed me. He did destroy me, not with a gun, not with violence, but with doubt, with silence. And I had believed him. That's what tore me apart the most. Not just that he was dirty, not just that he let children suffer, but that I let him convince me I was the problem, that my pain, my obsession, my refusal to move on, that was the issue. And I listened. I stepped away. I let them bury the case. And I walked away thinking I was doing the right thing. Now, with that list in my hands and the suspect's dead-eyed stare locked on me, I realized the truth. I wasn't just a failure. I was complicit, in my silence, in my fear, in my retreat. Martinez approached me again, cautious. "You're not looking good, partner." I didn't respond. My mind was unraveling. Flashes of faces, of voices, of kids we couldn't save, of parents begging me for answers. of Emily's mother, Sarah, standing in the station lobby, clutching a worn photo, asking, "You're a father, you understand, right?" I did understand, but I still let her down. My stomach turned. I leaned against the patrol car, trying to breathe, trying not to fall apart. Martinez looked at me, confused, concerned. "Talk to me, man. What's going on?" I could barely get the words out. "It's Doyle. He's in on it. He shut me down for a reason. He knew all of it." The weight of that admission crushed me. I felt like I was suffocating under a truth that had waited years to be spoken. And once it escaped, there was no putting it back. I started pacing, adrenaline surging, rage and guilt mixing into something raw and unbearable. How many cases had he silenced? How many kids suffered because I didn't fight harder? How many times had I looked the other way thinking I was being professional when I should have been raising hell? I stared at my reflection in the window of the squad car. I didn't recognize the man staring back. Badge or not, I had become exactly what I once swore to fight against. Someone who followed orders instead of following justice. And now the only way to redeem that man in the mirror was to burn everything down. No more hiding, no more silence, no more fear. But I knew what that meant. Taking Doyle down wouldn't just cost me my job. It would cost me everything. Reputation, safety, maybe even my life. He had power, allies, influence, and I was just one man, stripped of his badge, running on regret and rage. The war inside me reached a breaking point. I had a choice: stay silent and be safe, or speak out and risk everything. And in that storm of doubt, I realized something. Sometimes the most dangerous thing a man can do is finally tell the truth. And I was ready for the fight, for the fallout, for whatever came next. Because I'd already lived with the weight of failure. Now it was time to live for justice, even if it killed me. The sky was beginning to lighten on the horizon, painted in a pale, lifeless blue, the kind of dawn that doesn't bring peace, only exposes what the night tried to hide. I was still there, standing in the filth of that alley, list in hand, my conscience in pieces. The radio crackled, a familiar voice cutting through the static. The commander, cold, sharp, "Officer Grant, return to headquarters immediately after wrapping the scene. We have an internal issue to address. Urgent." My blood ran cold. They knew. Somehow, they already knew I had made the call, that the truth wasn't buried anymore, and that I was the one who dug it up. I looked at the suspect in the back of the patrol car. He wasn't smiling. He didn't say a word, but I saw it in his eyes. Relief, like he had done what he came to do, like he wanted to be caught, wanted to pass the torch to someone who might finally do what he couldn't. Before I could answer on the radio, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered, and the voice on the other end sent a chill down my spine. "Doyle, Officer Grant," he said, his voice calm, calculated, familiar. "I've been informed that you contacted Prosecutor Harrison. That's a breach of protocol. You're aware of that, aren't you?" My chest tightened. I knew that tone. I used to trust it. Now it made me sick. "You know exactly why I called. This ends now, Doyle. It's over." There was a pause, heavy, deliberate, then his voice again, quieter, darker. "You've always been a good soldier, Grant. You don't need to go out like this. You have a daughter, a life. Think carefully about what you're doing." It wasn't a suggestion. It was a threat. My body tensed, heart hammering. This wasn't just my job at stake, it was my family, my safety. He wasn't bluffing. Men like Doyle don't bluff. They eliminate. I hung up without another word, turned to Martinez, who stood there, confused but alert. "They're coming for me. Doyle knows. They're going to try and bury this. Again." He blinked, shocked. "What are you going to do?" I pulled out the photos, the list, the letter. "I'm taking these to Harrison. Now, before they disappear." Martinez hesitated. "That's career suicide, man. Are you sure?" I nodded, eyes locked on his. "I've lived with silence for too long. It ends tonight. We made 2 copies, one for me, one for Martinez, in case one of us didn't make it out clean." We slipped away from the scene, quiet, unnoticed. I drove like a man running from his own past, hands tight on the wheel, adrenaline burning in my veins. We reached the courthouse before dawn. Harrison was waiting, eyes sharp, jaw clenched. I handed him everything. He read the letter, the list. His face changed, from concern to fury. "You realize what this means?" he said. "This is war, and Doyle won't go down easy." I stared at him, voice steady. "Then we go to war." Outside, the sun was rising, but I felt no warmth. My phone buzzed nonstop. Calls from the department, text messages piling up. I didn't answer. I knew what they wanted. Suspension, internal affairs, maybe worse. They wanted me silent. Back at the station, they didn't even let me in the front door. An officer I didn't know handed me a sealed envelope. Turn in your badge and weapon. Effective immediately. Just like that. No hearing, no explanation, just exile. But I didn't care. Martinez met me outside. His eyes were heavy. Doyle's moving fast. They're already painting you as unstable, emotionally compromised, trying to discredit everything. I looked at him, calm. Let them try. The truth's with Harrison now. He won't back down. I walked away from the station, not as a cop, but as a man who had finally done the right thing. The consequences had begun, and I wasn't afraid, because for the first time in years, I was fighting for something real. No badge, no shield, just truth, and I would not be silenced again. The official fallout didn't take long. It hit like a freight train. Within 24 hours of delivering the evidence to Prosecutor Harrison, my name was everywhere, but not the way I expected. Internal. Affairs opened a formal inquiry, not into Doyle, but into me. Anonymous sources claimed I had tampered with evidence, that I had gone rogue, that I was mentally unstable, unfit for duty. They said I'd held a grudge against Doyle for years, and that I was launching a personal vendetta. The headlines followed their lead. Disgraced Officer Sparks' internal scandal, hero cop, or bitter ex-detective. I watched it all unfold from my kitchen table, a cup of cold coffee in my hand, my badge lying, useless beside it. My phone buzzed nonstop. Reporters, lawyers, cops I used to call brothers, some offering support, most staying silent. Martinez came by that afternoon, eyes bloodshot, tension written all over his face. He threw a folder on the table. They're leaking everything. Your old files, the Emily Carter case, trying to spin it like you were the problem back then. I picked up the folder. Pages of my career, twisted into accusations. Every mistake I'd ever made, magnified. Every time I fought too hard, pushed too far, refused to back down. It was all being used to paint me as unstable, dangerous. I felt the anger rise, but under it was something worse. Shame. I knew this would happen. And still, I walked straight into the fire. What about Harrison? I asked. Martinez nodded. He's holding the line. He got a court order to protect the evidence. The judge sealed it. Doyle can't touch it. Yet. A small victory. But I knew Doyle wouldn't stop there. Men like him don't go down easy. They drag others with them. And I was next in line. Later that night, I got a call from Sarah Carter. Her voice was calm, steady. I saw the news, she said. They're trying to bury you. I laughed bitterly. They're doing a damn good job. Silence. Then she said, I want to help. I froze. Sarah, this isn't your fight. Yes, it is. She snapped. You stood up for Emily when no one else would. Now it's my turn. And just like that, everything changed. The next morning, Sarah went public. She stood in front of the courthouse, surrounded by cameras, and told the world everything. About Emily, about Doyle, about me, about the letter. Her voice shook, but her eyes were fire. He didn't fail us, she said, pointing to a picture of me from the past. He was silenced, lied to, betrayed by the same people trying to discredit him now. But he never stopped fighting for my daughter, and I won't stop fighting for him. That speech broke the dam. More families came forward, more victims, more officers who had stayed quiet out of fear. One by one they stood up. Doyle tried to hold on, but the pressure crushed him. Within days, he was suspended, then arrested, charged with obstruction, conspiracy, and worse. And me? I watched from the sidelines, no longer a cop, but finally at peace. I had lost my badge, but I had my name, my honor, my truth. The consequences were real. I lost my career. My reputation was scarred, but I gained something I never thought I'd feel again. Freedom. And, for the first time in years, I could breathe. Because justice finally had a voice. I sat on the cold wooden bench outside the precinct, stripped of everything. No badge, no gun, no uniform. Just my hands, empty and raw, and a silence that felt louder than any siren I'd ever heard. The sun was climbing slowly over the city skyline, but I felt no warmth, only weight. The kind of weight that settles in your chest when you know there's no going back. That's when my phone buzzed. It was Harrison, the prosecutor. His voice was urgent. "Grant, I need you to come in. Now, there's someone here who wants to talk to you. You need to hear this." I didn't ask questions. I just went. When I arrived at the courthouse, Harrison met me at the door. He didn't say a word, just nodded and led me to a private room. And there she was, Sarah Carter, Emily's mother. I hadn't seen her in years. Her hair was grayer, her face more tired, but her eyes, they hadn't changed. Still full of pain, still full of fire. She stood slowly, holding something in her hands, a notebook worn and frayed. She walked up to me, held it out. "I wanted you to have this." I took it, confused. She smiled faintly. "It's Emily's journal. I found it a week after she disappeared. I kept it all these years. I thought, maybe it would help you understand what you've done." I opened it carefully. Inside were pages filled with a child's handwriting, scribbles, drawings, dreams. On one page, she'd written, "When I grow up, I want to help people, like superheroes do." My throat closed. I couldn't speak, could barely breathe. Sarah stepped closer. Her voice shook. "When you gave them that letter, when you handed over the truth, you became her hero. She didn't get to grow up and help people. But because of you, maybe others will." Tears blurred my vision. I'd spent so many years haunted by the face of that little girl, by the sound of her mother's voice begging me not to give up. I had given up. I'd walked away. But now, standing there holding Emily's words in my hands, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Redemption. Harrison broke the silence. "We're moving forward with full indictments, Doyle, his partners. We need you, Grant. Not as a cop, as a witness, as the man who exposed it all." I looked at him, then at Sarah. She nodded. I took a deep breath. "I'll do it. I'll testify. I'll face them all." Sarah placed a hand on my shoulder. "Then you've already won." That moment changed everything. Not because I was forgiven, not because the system was suddenly clean, but because I finally saw the truth. Justice isn't about wearing a badge. It's about standing up when it's hardest, about risking everything for someone else. I walked out of that room not as Officer Grant, but as a man who'd faced the darkness and chose to fight. For Emily, for every child failed by the silence, for the truth. And that conversation, it didn't just change me, it freed me. The days that followed felt surreal, like walking through the ruins of a life I no longer recognized. I was no longer a cop, no longer bound by shifts, radios, and chain of command orders. The badge was gone, the uniform too. All that remained was me, and the truth I now carried like a scar carved deep into my soul. At first, I didn't know what to do with myself. I'd lived for the job, for the routine, for the belief that I was making a difference. But the truth had shattered that illusion, and in its place came the one thing I had avoided for years: reflection. For the first time in over a decade, I was forced to face what I had become. Not just what they turned me into, but who I allowed myself to be. I had worn the badge with pride, believed in the system, believed that by following the rules, I was serving justice. But I wasn't serving justice. I was serving order, and sometimes the two are not the same. Justice requires risk, sacrifice, speaking out when silence is easier. I hadn't done that, not when it mattered most. When Emily vanished, when the evidence started to point in the wrong direction, when Doyle shut me down, I didn't fight. I backed off. I obeyed. I told myself I had no choice, that I'd do more good staying on the force than being thrown out. But that was a lie I lived with every day, and it ate at me, slow, constant, until I could barely look in the mirror. Now, there was nothing left to hide behind. No badge, no authority, just the cold, hard truth. I spent my nights sitting in my daughter's room, watching her sleep. Her face was peaceful, untouched by the weight I carried, and I'd think of the other children, the ones who never came home, the ones I couldn't save. Emily. Her name echoed in my chest like a drumbeat, a promise, a wound. But as painful as those nights were, they also gave me something I didn't expect: clarity. Because I finally understood that redemption doesn't come from pretending the past didn't happen. It comes from facing it and doing everything you can to make it right. I started writing, speaking, sharing my story, not for attention, but to expose the cracks, to show young cadets, parents, anyone who'd listen, that truth has a cost, and that the real heroes are the ones willing to pay it. The investigation gained momentum. More victims came forward. More officers spoke up. The department was forced to change, not because it wanted to, but because the silence was broken. And me? I wasn't healed. I probably never would be. But I was awake, alive in a way I hadn't been in years. And for the first time, I wasn't running from my guilt. I was carrying it forward, using it to fight for something real. That transformation didn't make me a hero. It made me human. And in the wreckage of everything I lost, I found something I never expected. Peace. Not because justice was perfect, but because I finally became the man I should have been all along. The official closure of the case came weeks later, stamped and filed like any other report. Cold, bureaucratic, impersonal. But the truth is, that case didn't end with paperwork. It ended in me. It ended the night I walked out of that alley without a badge, but with something far more dangerous in my hands. The truth. I remember the moment I received the final report. It was delivered by courier. Sealed envelope, no ceremony. Inside was a formal letter from Internal Affairs. The summary: investigation concluded. No evidence of criminal conduct by Officer Grant. Recommendation: early retirement. Effective due immediately. No apology. No acknowledgement. Just a quiet dismissal. They didn't want a trial. They wanted me gone. I stared at the letter for a long time. Then I folded it, walked to the old wooden box where I kept my badge and service weapon. I took them out one last time, weighed them in my hands. The badge used to feel like purpose. Now it felt like a lie. I placed it on the table, cold, lifeless. Let them keep it. I wasn't their cop anymore. The media followed the story for a while. Doyle's arrest made headlines, charges of obstruction, conspiracy, and more. As the truth unraveled, more names surfaced. Other officers, judges, people who had stayed silent for years. The system shook, but it didn't collapse. That's how it survives, always adapting, always protecting itself. But there was one thing it couldn't protect against: the people. Sarah Carter became the face of that fight. She led vigils, gave interviews, stood in front of crowds with a picture of Emily in her hands. And every time she spoke, she said my name, not to praise me, but to remind everyone that silence can be broken, that truth can still matter. One day she called and asked me to meet her. The old scrapyard where it all began was being torn down. In its place, a new community center was being built, one focused on helping at-risk kids. She invited me to the groundbreaking ceremony. I almost said no. I didn't feel like I deserved to be there, but something pulled me in. The day of the event, I stood at the edge of the crowd, anonymous. Sarah saw me, walked over, and handed me a shovel. "You started this," she said. "You end it." Together, we turned the first soil. Afterwards, she gave me a small box. Inside, Emily's drawing, a superhero, cape, badge, and all. On the back, in her handwriting, "Be brave, help people." I felt my chest tighten. Tears came, but I didn't stop them. Not anymore. That moment wasn't closure. It was something else. A promise fulfilled, a life honored, a truth finally spoken. And so the case closed. Not with a gavel, not with applause, but with the simple, powerful act of remembering, of choosing to carry the weight and turn it into something that could help someone else. I lost my career, my reputation, parts of myself I'll never get back. But in their place, I found something real. Not justice in the system, justice in the soul. And that was enough. Time moved on. Months, maybe years. I stopped keeping track. These days, I walk through the city like any other man. No badge, no siren, no radio in my ear. People pass by without recognizing me. And for the first time, I'm at peace with that, because that uniform once protected me, but it also hid me, hid the man I was, hid the truth I was too afraid to face. Emily's case became something more than just a story. It became a symbol. There were documentaries, news specials, community events in her name. Her face, a little girl with bright eyes, was no longer just a missing poster on a forgotten wall. She became the voice of those who had none. The reminder that justice delayed doesn't have to be justice denied. Doyle is gone, convicted, serving time. Others followed him. Some pleaded guilty. Others vanished into disgrace. The system tried to save itself, as it always does, offering up a few heads to avoid a deeper reckoning. But one thing it couldn't do was silence the truth. I never went back to the force. Never wanted to. That part of my life is done. And honestly, I don't miss it, because what I found in its place is something more powerful. I speak now, not as a cop, but as a man who lived the price of silence. I talk to young officers, to parents, to kids. I tell them that wearing a badge isn't the same as being brave. That real courage is standing for what's right, even when it costs you everything. One day, Sarah Carter called me again. The community center built where the scrapyard once stood, Emily's place, was complete. She asked me to speak at the opening. I almost said no. I didn't feel worthy. But then I remembered that night, that letter, that moment when I chose to stop running. I stood before the crowd, her photo behind me, and said, I couldn't save her, but I won't stop fighting for those I still can. And I promise you this, truth may be buried, but it never dies. It waits for someone with the courage to speak it. Afterwards, Sarah gave me a box. Inside, Emily's superhero drawing, now framed. On it, her words, be brave, help people. I hung it in my home where I see it every day. I still have the letter I found that night. I keep it in a drawer next to the drawing. I read it sometimes, not to relive the pain, but to remember the choice. The moment I decided not to be silent anymore. The moment I found my voice. Because in the end, this wasn't just about a crime. It was about redemption, about facing the darkest parts of yourself and choosing to fight anyway. Everyone gets their moment. That one point in life where you decide who you really are. I got mine in a dark alley holding a letter that changed everything. And you? When your moment comes, what will you choose? If this story meant something to you, leave a comment below. Tell me which part hit you hardest. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon, because here, we tell the stories that others are afraid to tell. Truth is our badge. Justice is our mission. Always.